We have been listening to live here on News 13 the pretrial hearing in the George Zimmerman trial that's going to be happening on Monday. But the judge right now has called a 10-minute recess and says that it is time to get into the Fry hearing. And she says the sanctions for this hearing will be held post-trial. So that's what we're waiting for right now. But there's been a lot of fireworks today about what was withheld and what was not, with the Don West, the co-counsel for the defense, clearly saying that quote, we caught you hiding information, talking to the prosecutor, Della Rianda. Let's bring in our legal analyst, David Jancha, criminal defense attorney, NeJame Law, and no love lost between these two.
No, not at all, Jackie. I think what's very interesting is the exchange back and forth between both the state and the defense. There's been allegations that there has been a file that was the dump from the cell phone that was actually turned over to the defense. However, the defense's ability to understand what's in that file or reports that may have been generated by the state may have not been turned over. I think Judge Nelson hit the nail on the head when she decided to move on from this particular topic. One of the issues that she wanted to address today was the admissibility of any expert testimony in regards to speaker identification. These issues that have been presented today are normally part of what would be considered, from an attorney's perspective, the discovery process, wherein an individual, be it the state or the defense, is providing information specifically that they intend to use at trial or that may be exculpatory from the state's perspective. The question that we have here today is actually, what is there that hasn't been disclosed? It's been discussed that there have been some pictures. I'm not sure about their admissibility at trial, but if there are certain items which have not been disclosed, the defense may not be ready for trial. It looks like that this, in essence, turned into a Richardson hearing.
Let me ask you that if some of these things, the Judge Nelson has said this trial is going to begin on Monday, and so if some of these pictures and the text messages they say that have not, they haven't gotten, like they brought up a gun, what's going to happen?
Well, what can happen, Jackie, is in regards to the particular evidence, and that's what I just mentioned, the Richardson hearing, the judge would determine if these violations are inadvertent or willful, and then how they prejudice each side, whether that be the state or the defense, and then from there the judge would determine what sanction is appropriate. In regards to the pictures of a marijuana plant or a firearm, for that matter, I'm not sure that they'd be admissible at trial, so the judge may exclude those. If there's other evidence that was included in the state's report, either the first report or second report, that was not disclosed to Mr. O'Mara or the defense, that could raise some serious issues. The most important thing here is for a fair trial.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Jury selection begins on Monday. Certainly some of the prospective jurors might be listening to this. What does that do? Well,
in regard to the prospective jurors that may be listening to this, I think that Mr. O'Mara can address and Mr. Della Rianda can address those issues during jury selection. I know that during my experiences previously appearing before Judge Nelson that she does mean what she says, although she is always open to listening to any particular option if there's a reason for a continuance. It appears that based off what's gone on so far today that the defense is looking for a continuance and possibly the state is looking for a continuance. I'm not so sure that Judge Nelson will grant that absent some compelling circumstances, but that being said, I think the case will move forward, and Judge Nelson definitely is going to continue to push forward with trial on Monday. As for how the jurors may see it, I think that both sides of the case will be able to ascertain who the appropriate members of the juror may be through their questioning of the jurors.
All right, let's talk once again about what's going to happen when court resumes for the Fry hearing. What can we expect?
What I anticipate in regards to the Fry hearing is testimony in regards to what is generally called general acceptance in the community. Florida is a Fry state, and what that means is that we're actually different than the United States Supreme Court, which is a Daubert state, or excuse me, a Daubert ruling, and we're Daubert country. The issues that relay to expert testimony are very similar in regards to one another. However, the testimony that will probably come forward as to whether or not the scientific evidence is new or novel. If it is not new or novel, the Frye standard may not apply. Other things that may be addressed are the error rate of this particular test, how much, I guess you would say, scientific knowledge is involved. But under the Frye standard, it has to be new or novel evidence. The experts are probably going to talk about various forms of speaker identification as opposed to speech identification. Speech being the particular words that were spoken, speaker identification as to who is actually speaking, whether that is Mr. Martin or whether or not that is George Zimmerman. The spectrogram, which includes, in essence, time times frequency, as well as other issues relating to sound quality, are things that individuals look at. Now, it's not something that's novel or new to the court system in regards to corroborative evidence for there to be testimony in regards to identification of voices. However, it does appear that this is a novel issue, and that what's specifically being asked is, whose voice is this on the tape? Unfortunately, one of the individuals is no longer able to tell us, and the other individual, if he chooses to testify, would be the only one who would be able to explain that. It's clearly a material fact. The issue then becomes whether or not the probative value is outweighed by the confusion or the prejudice in regards to the potential jurors. In essence, will the jurors understand what's going on?
Oh. We will have to wait and see. All right, stand by. David Jancha, criminal defense attorney with NeJame Law. We'll get back to you once the court resumes. Right now, we are still in recess for the beginning of the Frye hearing. We've been carrying that for you live since it began this morning. The Frye hearing is going to be addressing concerns that Zimmerman's defense has over analysis of the 911 call, where you can hear those cries for help. We also want to let you know we've been watching another big story, that of Tropical Storm Andrea. And of course, our weather experts are standing by. If a tornado warning is issued, of course, we'll break away right to our weather experts so that you will be up to date and have the latest information. But right now, we're going to bring in, as we wait for the Frye hearing to begin, we're going to bring in David Jancha. He is a criminal defense attorney with NeJame Law. Thanks for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Jay.
Let's briefly talk about what has happened so far and the reason why Judge Nelson said, essentially, it's enough. If the time is late, we need to get to the Frye hearing. We have got, experts waiting to testify.
Well, I think we were all waiting to see what was going to happen in regards to the Frye hearing. The defense filed a motion for sanctions in regard to the cell phone dump, which was turned over, but it appears that there may have been, and again, I want to caution and say it appears that there may have been reports that were not turned over. Those issues can be addressed pre-trial, and the judge can determine whether there's any evidence that should be excluded or what the appropriate remedy is at that point in time. I think what Judge Nelson wants to do is focus on the issue relating to speaker identification and as to whether or not the experts are going to be capable of conveying a message to the jury one way or another as to whether or not this is Mr. Martin's voice or whether or not this is Mr. Zimmerman's voice. The technology and the methods underlying that are things I think that the court will look at. But I think what the court was trying to do was to move on because it appears that a lot of these issues that were presented, while though very important to a fair trial, lean more on the side of an attempt to get a continuance, it appears, by both sides. But I think when Judge Nelson says she's going to move on and indicates that she's going to move on, she is going to move on. With the Frye hearing, I think what's important that Judge Nelson is going to do is to see if the testimony of the witnesses actually is going to assist the jury in making a determination in regards to whose voice is on this call. The other issues that we have with it are that do the experts use methods that are generally accepted in regards to speaker identification? although Florida is currently a FRI state, things have actually changed a little bit, but not quite yet. And what I mean by that is yesterday Governor Scott, it's my understanding, signed a House bill which will, as effective I believe July 1st of 2013, will make Florida a Daubert state. What that means in essence is that the standards that will be looked at will be substantially similar but a little bit different. The Daubert standard, which is currently the federal standard, looks more towards error rates and scientific knowledge and the means that were used to obtain that scientific knowledge. The FRI standard is more focused upon general acceptance in that, well, I should say, in regards to relevant evidence and general acceptance of relevant evidence in that area of the law. And when I say that area of the law, what I'm talking about specifically is the speaker identification as opposed to voice identification. What's interesting here is we don't have, at least as far as we know, we don't have a lot of information gathered whether or not there are voice samples from Mr. Zimmerman or voice samples from Mr. Martin. In the research that I've done, and
interrupt you for just a second,
Yes,
David. I understand that recess is over and court is back in session. So let's take it back out to the hearing for this afternoon, which will be the FRI hearing.